The heavy, humid air of the Belarusian marshes in June 1944 felt like a wet wool blanket pressed against the face of Sergeant Andrei Koval. He lay in the shallow trench, the smell of damp earth and stale tobacco filling his nostrils as he stared at the horizon. Behind him, hidden in the dense forests, thousands of steel beasts, T-34 tanks and Katyusha rocket launches waited in a silence so brittle it felt like it might shatter at any moment. This was Operation Bagratan, a tidal wave of iron and blood about to break over the German lines. Andrei reached into his tunic, feeling the frayed edges of a photograph of his wife, Maria, and their son. He didn't look at it. He just needed to know it was there, a thin paper shield against the looming apocalypse. Beside him, Sasha, a 19-year-old private with freckles that seemed too youthful for a man holding a submachine gun, was trembling, not with fear, but with the kinetic energy of a heart beating too fast. "Sergeant," Sasha whispered, his voice cracking, "do you think the lime trees are blooming in Poltava right now?" Andrei didn't answer. He couldn't. At exactly 0500, the world ended. The sky behind them didn't just brighten, it ignited. The roar of 3,000 guns tore through the atmosphere, a physical blow that slammed the soldiers into the mud. The earth groaned under the weight of the metal being hurled eastward. For hours, the horizon was a strobe light of orange and white flashes, and the sound was no longer a noise, but a vibration that rattled Andrei's very bones. When the whistle finally blew, it was almost a relief. "Forward!" the command echoed, lost in the cacophony. Andrei surged upward, his boots slipping on the slick clay. The ground was a lunar landscape of smoking craters. As they crossed no man's land, the German response began, a rhythmic, tearing sound of MG-42s, the Hitlers saw, cutting through the air. Men fell not like heroes in movies, but like sacks of grain, silent and heavy. Andrei saw a flash to his left, a hidden bunker that had survived the barrage. A stream of tracers stitched the ground, catching Sasha in the chest. The boy didn't scream. He simply spun and fell into a shell hole, his eyes reflecting the smoke-choked sky. Rage, cold and sharp as a bayonet, replaced the numbness in Andrei's chest. He didn't think. He operated on the raw instinct of a man who had seen too much death to fear his own. He crawled through the searing heat of a burning Tiger tank, the smell of roasted oil and flesh sickening, and unhooked a grenade. With a guttural roar that was drowned out by a nearby tank explosion, he lunged forward, tossing the iron pineapple into the narrow slit of the bunker. The muffled thump and the subsequent silence of the machine gun felt like a small victory in a world of madness. By the time they reached the third line of German trenches, the sun was a pale, sickly disk hanging in a shroud of dust. The fighting was primal, shovels, knives, and bare hands in the claustrophobic confines of the earth. Andrei found himself face to face with a German soldier, a man no older than himself, eyes wide with the same animal terror. They grappled in the mud, the world shrinking down to the strength of their grip on each other's throats. It wasn't about ideology then, it was about the next breath. Andrei prevailed, but as he stood up, gasping for air, he looked at his hands and saw only the grime of a broken world. The village they were meant to take was a skeleton of scorched timber. As night fell, the momentum of the great advance continued, the distant rumble of tanks moving further west. Andrei sat on a collapsed stone wall, his shoulder bleeding from a shrapnel nick he hadn't noticed during the heat of the assault. He pulled out the photograph. It was damp with sweat and stained with a dark smear of blood. He looked at the faces of his family, trying to remember the sound of Maria's laughter, but all he could hear was the ringing in his ears and the ghostly echo of Sasha asking about the lime trees. They had moved the map 10 kilometers west today.
10 kilometers of scorched earth, thousands of empty boots, and a sky that would never look the same again. Andrei tucked the photo back over his heart, closed his eyes, and waited for the next whistle, a solitary ghost in the middle of a steel storm that was still miles away from Berlin. I can continue this narrative or focus on a specific technical aspect of the battle, like the tank engagement or the medical tents. What should we explore next?